Hey, Natsu here. Today I'm going to do part 2 of my What If Deku was in the 7 Deadly Sins. In the last part, I ended it with Ban and Meliodas telling Deku that they were going to train him because they saw that, well, he was strong for his age, firstly, and they don't know that yet. They know he heals kind of a bit faster than normal people. They don't know that with the power increase he's going to be a lot stronger later. As well as if he drinks demon blood or something like that, he would basically, if he drinks Meliodas blood, get his demon powers, 7 hearts, and basically even if you destroy the head, as long as they're able to put their darkness around it to recreate it, they can survive, as long as their hearts aren't destroyed, basically. If he does that, he would also gain the curse that Meliodas has, that renders him immortal, and every time he dies, he basically just comes back to life. Compared to Meliodas, he wouldn't lose emotions and memory, but yeah, that might come a lot later. So, I don't remember how long it was between them finding Ban and then them going to the place where King is. But let's say it's around a week or so. Just because I don't want to go check. Well, let's say it's more than a week. No matter the time, basically, as long as it's over a week. Basically, they see that his power can increase extremely fast. Simply because every time he train or get damage or stuff like that, when he heals, he basically gets a boost in power. They don't know how strong it is, but from what he was in the last part, he would have increased. Since they don't go all out against him, they don't want him to die, but they still, since they don't actually fight him, they just train him. Um, Diane helps with that also, but differently. Like, making specific size of um, rocks. Like, um, we know that they're extremely strong, so basically what she does is do like dumbbells or stuff like that, but with stone instead, for him to basically be able to do weight training. Simply because he explained to her how they looked, and she basically made them. Pretty sure they do have those in that world, but yeah. So he basically used that a lot and stuff like that. And basically his spirit increased to around 130. His magic increased to about 167. And his strength increased the most and is at around 210. Basically rounding all of that up to over 400 if you add everything. But he is still weaker than Gila or people like that. He is stronger now. A lot. But that's only because of the capacity to become stronger, thanks to Zenkai and his regeneration. In the last part I said that a small cut on the hand heals in about 3 minutes. With his power increase, it's basically more like 2 minutes 55 instead. It's not that big, but it's still something. It's going to be a lot more visible later, since yeah, you would say that's a big power increase for what he had, but think about it like that. They're basically pushing him to the limit of his body, and even beyond that. So, with the regeneration, it basically helps a lot. So, they arrive where they found King. Basically, the same thing happened exactly. Um, except that this time, when Meliodas and Diane arrived to find Ban and found King as well, Deku followed them with Diane and um, Hawks. Hawks. In Fetch, it's Oak, basically. So yeah, basically they all arrived, and when Meliodas said, "Ah, King," Deku looked at him and said, "Wait, that's King? I thought you." Well, I wish from his picture he doesn't look at all the same. Which Meliodas just kind of talked like he did to King, not acknowledging anyone around them. King asked who Deku and Elizabeth were, which he basically said that this kid lost his memory. Well, no, first he says that. Well, no, actually, he didn't ask that yet. Right, that he asked later. Um, yeah, at that moment, he basically told. Well, was just talking about Ban again, all the way up until the door to the world of the dead opened. When that happened, basically, well, Gila attacked them in that place, but before that happened, basically King and Ban were getting away. Then Gila arrived and did what she did, which then Diane and Hawks followed where they were. Deku, though, what he was doing was just following Ban and King directly. Um, so he basically saw everything that happened from afar, since he heard everything. He also saw um, the weapon that he had, well, that King had. When Ban was turned to stone, Deku came out of hiding and basically just kind of asked what the hell he did. King told him to just go away. He did that for a good reason. Then Elaine arrived, unfossilized Ban. The same thing happened with them. Ban leaves to go help Meliodas and Diane. Hawks and Elizabeth arrives. They basically tell the same thing, and when she tries to lift it up, before King can lift it up, Deku basically grabbed it and just said, "Look, if you're not helping him," and basically just pulled it out of the ground. He just said, "I will," which King was a bit surprised by the strength he had, but he didn't really think about it and just kind of made it float, and went and did what he did in the anime. They left. After that, they left the place. They did the same thing to Gila. Then they left, and we're going to the place where Gideon, Diane's hammer, was. But before all of that happened, they basically did a small party to say hi to King, Then he asked who those two were, which they first talked about Elizabeth, which he then changed, which Deku basically said, "Whoa, you look a lot more like you did in the picture," basically not thinking about how weird it looked, simply because of where he comes from and now where he is, which there is magic and stuff like that, so he didn't really think that much about it, just thinking, oh, it's a type of magic or something, which, yeah, kind of, since fairies has the magic capacity of transforming to just kind of hide. So Ban basically reacted weird and asked Deku why he wasn't surprised, and all Deku said was just, "What? It's not normal here." Which King asked what he means, and Meliodas basically says, "Oh, him? That's Izuku. We found him while we were going to a city, well, to a village. He doesn't have any of his memory. He is strong, though." Which King basically says, "Yeah, I know. Um, he is pretty strong for a young human." Which Deku then said, "Hey, you don't look that old yourself." Which King then says, "I'm a fairy. This is how I am over 700 years old." Which kind of shocks Izuku a bit, since they, he knows that Ban is named Undead Ban and that he can regenerate. Then he heard while they were in the dead zone that I'm calling it most of the time, that Ban was immortal, and that really surprised him. For Dian, he knew she was a giant, and for everyone, well, for Meliodas and Elizabeth, he thought they were human, which they kind of aren't. Since okay, this is spoiler if you didn't watch the last season of well, actually, for well, just if you didn't see the end of season 1, Meliodas is a demon and Elizabeth is a goddess, so they're not human truly. So they basically start talking about the sacred treasures, and they have to explain it to Elizabeth and Izuku, as well as Hawk. Then they talk about where Diane's Warhammer Gideon is, and Deku starts thinking about how he could actually um, become more powerful, and he just thought one of those would be useful. By this point, he doesn't want to go back to his world, because in this world he is actually strong, and all he knows from his old world is that he didn't have a quirk, any power, or stuff like that. He was weak, bullied, and the only person that actually cared about him was his mom. And by this point, yeah. So, by this point, he truly just wants to stay in that world with his 14 years of age, and he's going to become a lot stronger. Basically, he wants to become stronger, he wants to be able to help people, and so he asks for more training that is harder, that will help him increase his strength a lot more, which King basically asks what's his age. Deku says 14, and King's surprised that at this age, with training from King and from Ban and Meliodas. Even with those two training for a while, normally you don't get that strong. Which both of them said that since they started training him, he actually almost doubled in strength. Which King's basically just thinking, wait, what? That's impossible. Nobody gets that strong that fast. Which Deku says, well, I kind of did. Which King looks at him and says, okay, and how? Which Meliodas basically says, well, Ban's immortal, he can regenerate. Diane's a giant. You're a fairy, he's a human. Basically pointing to Deku, and then he said, compared to normal human, he seems to have a capacity to regenerate. And every time he does, he gets stronger, so we kind of just push him to the limit of his power. Which does impress King that a human was born with an ability like that. And from that, he basically think, okay, yeah, that explains a bit for his strength. If every time he gets damage, he gets stronger, even a kid would become strong just by that. As long as he goes outside most of the time. So he does now feel that his strength is explained a bit. So he asks Deku if he has any magic or stuff like that. Which he basically says that he doesn't know actually a lot. Like he said, he just kind of woke up without any memory except for his name. And he didn't even know about his ability. So they decide to go for Gideon, with King basically thinking it's weird. But he doesn't know what to do with it. He does see, during the time they go for the hammer, the way Deku trains, and how every day he's able to take a little more, and a little more, and a little more. Let's say for the time that it took them to get from where they were to where the hammer is about 5 days. His strength basically increased by around 30, his spirit by about 20, and his magic by another 20. Because, well, no, King basically tried to teach him magic, just kind of like a normal type of spell, since any human could learn any magic normally if they have the amount of magic in them that they need to do it. So he doesn't know how much he has, but he still tries to explain to him how magic works and stuff like that, which increased his magic more than the rest to about a 40. Which basically makes him a lot more rounded, instead of simply increasing strength like he did with the other things, well, with the other trainings. But since he didn't actually use magic, he only kind of trained it to try and use it. His magic basically just increased a little more than what it would have done normally. His healing didn't increase by that much, basically around a second only. And they arrived at the tournament. The same thing with Diane and Elizabeth happens, while Deku decided to enter with the other sins. So 5 of them inside. Izuku basically being a lot stronger than a normal human basically makes him in the competition destroy a lot of people. So the peoples that were kept for the finals, well, for afterward, were King, Bayan, Ban. Wait, King, Bayan, Ban, Meliodas, the guy that used fire. Okay, so what I'm going to do is switch King for Deku. Basically the same thing with him kind of falling off the arena but floating happened. But they don't need to look for him since Deku's still on it. So the battles play out the same way. Diane against the wait, the battles were placed for okay, it was Ban and Meliodas against each other in the fourth of the first round. Um, wait, Diane beats um, the guy that does shields. Afterwards, she beats the guy that does wind. While Deku is first against the guy that launched fire. He loses against that guy simply because he doesn't know magic, so the fireball kind of beated him and pushed him out. Ban gets beaten by Meliodas. Meliodas beats the guy that throws fire, and then they arrive in the final with Diane against Meliodas. That basically plays out the exact same way, with them basically telling everyone to run away. Deku not running since okay, yeah, he knows them. He did learn to sense power and he sensed it. And what he did was basically grab Hawks and Elizabeth and run away. That's basically what he did. So Jericho and Gila arrived, basically did their things. Elizabeth, Hawks, and Deku basically went hiding, and she unshrunk in the middle of hiding, which Deku basically became red and turned around, while Elizabeth's sister basically arrived, gave her clothes. She asked who the kid was. She explained who he was and that she was trained to find the seven, and basically explained what she did in the anime. Basically, afterward, the same thing happened with them. Let's say when Gila and Jericho were beating the others, since everything only kind of happened when, well, Meliodas was captured in the pendant. After a bit, Ban was being beaten. King arrived, kind of beat them up. They were saved by the Elbrum guy. And all of that happened basically the same. All the way up until Meliodas was able to save himself, and until Diane was able to basically make an entire mountain fall on the guy, well, on Helbrum. After that happened, basically Deku thought about it and was like, I don't know what his species is. What type of monster is he? He's not human, that's not magic. He knows it. Um, so basically, for now he didn't drink any blood yet. He will find out a bit later. But Diane got her hammer, they left. Um, Elizabeth's sister basically got healed by Elizabeth, which Deku didn't see happen. He was next to her, but basically multiple times there wasn't light around her. It basically just healed people. Um, which is also the first place where they hinted that she was a goddess. Well, part of goddess. And I'm going to end it here. So Deku basically learned about sacred treasures, and they found King and Gideon's Diane's hammer. Deku started thinking, just like Ban, that Meliodas might be a demon or something like that for Deku, since he learned about the war 3000 years ago, since Elizabeth decided to explain it to him. So he's basically thinking that Meliodas is probably that. His strength is pretty high right now for a normal human. He just simply doesn't have magic or any way to counter it, so the old guy was able to beat him by basically surprising him. He healed from the burning pretty fast. Well, he was basically still kind of burnt before um, Elizabeth healed her sister, which also helped Deku heal faster. He didn't realize it, but still. His strength increased to about just a bit over 310 for strength. Spirit didn't change and magic either. Well, no, let's say they basically arrived at 300 and let's say 11 for strength because it was big damage. 200 and 240 for spirit. Basically a massive increase because he didn't want to give up. And he was basically pushing himself to basically try to help Elizabeth because he sensed the amount of power. I'm pretty sure that's not what it is, but still. Also, his body being attacked directly by magic also increased that to around 200 and let's say 50. So all around a massive boost just because of that. And yeah. In the next part they're going to find Goter, which will basically probably try to see in Deku's mind and be amazed by what he sees, but yeah, we'll see. That's going to depend. I basically had the entire next part in, except for that if Goter looks into... Well, Goter will look into Deku's mind, but I'm trying to decide if Goter will be able to see about Deku's old world and ask him if he remembers about it, or if he doesn't see it and basically only sees what Deku knows from when he started. You can help me by saying what you would prefer. If Goder is able to go into Deku's mind and see his past life, I'm going to do. I'm going to have two choices to do about that one, but I'm going to do myself. But you can choose if he is able to see the old world or not. Tell me that in the comment section. And Deku out.